Welcome to the Deep Dive. We sift through interesting sources to pull out the key insights for you. There's so much talk these days about quiet quitting, burnout. Leaders are really asking, how do we get people engaged, truly engaged, not just showing up? So today, we're diving into organizational development, basically, how companies get better and how they look after their people, and human capital, thinking of employees as, well, assets. We're looking specifically at a company called Free to Grow. We've got some of their material here, and it gives a really interesting window into how they approach well-being, growth, engagement. Our mission really is to understand how learning can genuinely shift behavior, how it can resonate deeply, and what that actually does for a workplace. What's the real impact?
Well, what immediately jumps out, and it sort of frames everything else, is their core purpose statement.
Oh, yeah? What's that?
It's this: to win in the marketplace, you need to win in the workplace.
Simple but powerful.
Exactly. It's not just a slogan. It directly links internal health, how your people are doing with external success. It challenges that old idea that they're separate things.
Right. It puts the human element right at the center of strategy, doesn't it?
It really does. It suggests the employee experience isn't just HR's job, it's fundamental to winning, period.
Okay, so if that's the goal, winning in the workplace, Free to Grow points to three key areas. What are these pillars? And, why are they important together? Lots of places seem to tackle these things separately.
That's a really critical point. Many places do treat them in silos. A wellness program over here, maybe some training over there. But Free to Grow's insight, and this lines up with a lot of current thinking, is that these three are deeply intertwined. They call them employee well-being, growth and development, and employee engagement.
Okay.
Think of it maybe like a three-legged stool. If one leg's weak, the whole thing is unstable, right?
Makes sense.
Well-being means people are healthy, resilient. Growth means they're learning, adapting. Engagement means they're motivated, connected.
And you can't really have one without the others working well.
Exactly. Neglect one and the others definitely feel it. It's the combination, the synergy that unlocks that real potential.
Okay, this is where I found it got really interesting. They talk about shifting behavior through learning experiences that touch hearts and open minds. That sounds, well, deeper than your average training session. How do they actually make that happen? How does that translate into, real measurable impact? What makes an experience high impact enough to change hearts and minds?
Yeah, that phrase, touch hearts and open minds, it's clearly central to how they operate. It signals they're not just about transferring information. They highlight their skill and extensive experience in creating and facilitating high-impact learning experiences. So what does that mean? It means moving beyond lectures.
Right?
It's about crafting experiences that connect emotionally. Maybe using role play, simulations, really thoughtful group discussions that make people reflect personally, practical stuff they can apply immediately.
So experiential learning, basically.
Very much so. It taps into how adults actually learn and change. You need that emotional connection, that active participation for things to stick. It's not just hearing it, it's feeling it, applying it. That creates those aha moments.
That distinction, felt versus heard, feels really important, like building from the inside out.
Yeah.
So let's get specific. Moving past the pillars, what are the concrete outcomes? When Free to Grow works with the company, what problems are they actually solving on the ground for leaders and staff?
Okay, yeah, they outlined 6 key impact areas. These are pretty common challenges companies face today. First, they aim to significantly enhance employee well-being and resilience. And that's not about avoiding stress, but about equipping people to, as they put it, persevere during tough times, building that bounce-back ability.
Which we all know is incredibly vital these days.
Absolutely. Second, they focus on unleashing leadership potential at the lower rungs of the leadership ladder.
Interesting. Not just the top brass.
Right. It's often an overlooked group, but so critical. Empowering those supervisors, those team leads, it creates a ripple effect. Better engagement, a more positive experience right where the work happens. Builds your future leaders, too.
So democratizing leadership development, in a way. What about managers who are already further up the ladder?
Good question. That's their third point. Equipping middle and senior level managers to be truly effective in today's world. Things change so fast, right? So this means helping them lead change, develop, and crucially keep their talent, build a strong culture.
In the remote work piece.
Yes. And importantly, manage those remote, hybrid, distributed teams effectively. That's a huge pain point for so many right now.
Definitely. Okay, what's number 4?
Fourth is enhancing something called psychological capital, or PsyCap.
PsyCap.
Yeah, they define it as this mix of hope, optimism, resilience, and self-efficacy, that belief in your own ability. It's about building that inner resourcefulness so people can thrive and really go after their goals.
So inner strength, belief. What about the overall vibe of the place?
Yeah.
The culture?
That's number 5. Nurturing a high-performance, high-engagement culture. Moving beyond just compliance, doing the job, to genuine inspiration and commitment, getting people to want to bring their best.
From compliance to commitment. I like that. And the last one.
And finally, number 6, and maybe it underpins everything, is growing trust, understanding, and a sense of belonging in teams.
Belonging. That feels huge.
It is. When people feel valued, respected, included,
Hmm.
it's not just nice. It unlocks collaboration, psychological safety. People give their best when they feel they belong. These 6 things together, they paint a really holistic picture.
That's a really comprehensive list. It covers individual mindset, team dynamics, leadership at all levels. Thinking about all those impacts, is there one area you think companies most often overlook or maybe find the hardest to get right, where free to grow really seems to make a difference?
That's a good question. I'd probably point to the psychological capital piece and maybe that deep sense of belonging, especially further down the organization, like on the shop floor. Well, many companies focus on skills, procedures, right, but they miss addressing those fundamental psychological needs. It's harder, maybe less tangible initially. It requires seeing employees as whole people, not just cogs in a machine. Free to Grow's emphasis on touching hearts and minds seems to apply right down to the entry level, which feels quite unique. Getting that right across the board, that's powerful.
That makes sense. It's often easier to teach a skill than shift a mindset or foster belonging. But how do they do it? Lots of consultants promise big results. What's unique about Free to Grow's approach? What's their value proposition that lets them tackle these tougher heart and mind elements?
Right. What makes them different? Their value propositions give us some clues. First, it's not one size fits all. They talk about co-created solutions, customized. They really dig into the specific company's context first.
So tailored, not off the shelf.
Exactly. Second, excellent design capability. This links back to creating that outstanding, engaging learner experience we talked about. It's about how it's delivered, making it memorable and interactive.
Yeah.
Then there's their depth of experience. Decades in this field means they act more like a trusted advisor, not just a vendor. They've likely seen similar challenges before, maybe in similar industries, and can offer that practical wisdom.
And flexibility must be important too, with how varied workplaces are now.
Absolutely. That's another point. Flexible implementation options, face-to-face, virtual, train the trainer, even DIY toolkits. They adapt to the client's needs and structure,
Makes sense.
and they emphasize consistency in delivery, so the quality is maintained no matter the format. Plus, they use innovative tools to solidify learning follow-up is key, right? Making sure it actually sticks.
Right, not just a one-day workshop that's forgotten by Monday.
Precisely. And finally, coming back to that point, their specialized skills to touch hearts and minds, specifically at entry and shop floor levels, that ability to connect effectively across the entire organization seems to be a real cornerstone for them.
Okay, that paints a clearer picture of their how. Now let's talk scale. This isn't some small, local outfit. The numbers on their track record are pretty striking, aren't they?
They really are. The source material mentions 31 years in operation.
Wow, 3 decades.
Yeah, and during that time, they've worked with 1,532 organizations,
Huge number.
reaching 158,416 people, and operated in 36 countries.
Okay, 36 countries. That's significant global reach.
It really is. It shows their approach isn't just theoretical. It's been tested and adapted across many different contexts, cultures, industries.
And looking closer at that geography, they mention a strong African footprint, right? Representation in places like Botswana, Ghana, Kenya, Namibia, Mozambique, Nigeria.
Yes, a very strong presence there. And the list of countries where they've actually delivered projects is extensive, especially across Africa and the Middle East, Angola, Burundi, DRC, Dubai, Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, Jordan. The list goes on.
But also projects further afield, Argentina, Australia, Canada, Singapore. So a truly global operation, but with perhaps deep roots in Africa and the Middle East.
That seems fair to say yes.
What does that extensive international work, especially in those diverse African and Middle Eastern markets? Tell us about this heart and minds approach. Does it travel well? Is it universal?
I think it suggests something really important, that the core human needs at work, Well-being, growth, belonging, feeling valued are pretty universal.
Hmm.
While you definitely need to adapt specifics for culture, the fundamental desire for respect, for development, for connection that transcends borders, their success in such varied places suggests this human-centric model works broadly. It implies that heart and humanity isn't just a Western luxury item, it's a fundamental component of effective organizations everywhere. It speaks a kind of global language.
A global language for organizational success. I like that. Which brings us back to that core idea. There's this quote from a client OD specialist named Kirsty Holmes. She said, "The magic that you bring is heart and humanity and a deep caring, which are all very powerful." How does that specific feedback loop back into everything we've discussed, the pillars, the impact, the reach?
It ties it all together beautifully, doesn't it? That quote directly echoes the focus on well-being, on psychological capital, on fostering belonging. It suggests their success, their magic perhaps, isn't just down to clever program design.
It's something deeper.
It seems so. It points to that genuinely human-centric core. They're not just ticking boxes. They seem to be fostering environments where people feel genuinely cared for. And in a business world often obsessed with metrics, maybe that heart and humanity is actually their most powerful strategic advantage for driving real engagement and growth.
Which raises a fascinating question for any leader listening.
Exactly. In our own drive for results, what's the real value, the ROI of consciously embedding that deep caring into how we operate every day? What do we gain?
A really critical question. So we've unpacked how Free to Grow links well-being, growth, and engagement as essential strategies, not just optional extras.
Yeah.
It all comes back to that idea: win in the workplace to win in the marketplace.
Yeah.
The human element isn't just a department, it's the core of the business.
And perhaps the bigger takeaway here is that, true, sustainable success isn't just about brilliant strategy or the latest tech. It might fundamentally depend on nurturing the human spirit within the organization. So the thought to leave you with is this. What could it mean for your team, your organization, to really lean into cultivating heart and humanity daily? To move beyond just training to genuine transformation? What might that long-term, maybe even magical, return look like?
Definitely something to reflect on. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into making workplaces more human and ultimately more successful. We hope it sparks some valuable ideas for you.